Okay, so you wrote about the dark triad in Psychology Today and in Quillette.
Hmm.
And I believe it was Psychology Today. Oh yeah, dark personalities are more likely to signal victimhood.
Hmm.
So so that surprises me a bit because I always thought that it was more agreeable people that tended towards being victims. But that's not what this suggests.
Well, it's a little bit tricky. So that paper was a fascinating paper. I think it was published in 2020 in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. A series of very interesting studies, and they weren't claiming. So the researchers were not claiming, based on the studies that they ran, that uh, actual victims score higher on dark triad personality traits. What they were claiming is that people who tend to score high on dark triad personality traits tend to signal victimhood more. And signaling victimhood is not necessarily the same thing as actually being a victim, right? And so people who are truly sort of the targets of misfortune or suffering, who've really gone through bad things, those aren't the people who tend to be narcissists or psychopaths, but the people who tend to be narcissists and psychopaths will sort of exploit people's empathy and sort of exploit people's willingness to help suffering people by playing a victim. And so, of course, they ran the standard dark triad scales, sort of asking people various questions about how they interact with other people and how they move through the world, whether they tend to be cold and calculating and so forth, whether they're sort of believe themselves to be more important than other people. But then they also created a victim signaling scale, and it included items like, I tend to want to broadcast that people like me are sort of not as well known as we should be, or how more people who are like me need to be represented in the media or in sort of the public conversation. Basically, like they're put upon, they're sort of suffering in some way, and they tended to highly correlate. So the higher you are in dark triad, the more signaling you do in terms of victimhood signaling. So they also found some interesting, it wasn't just correlational studies. So they weren't just administering scales and finding that they tended to correlate. They were also doing experimental studies as well. Basically, in one of the studies, what they did was the psychologists rigged a game in which participants could win some money. But what the psychologist did was rigged it so that it was really easy to cheat, and it was really easy for them to figure out who cheated. And first, they had people play this game. They tracked who cheated in the game to win more money. And they also had these participants take the dark triad personality scale, and they found that the people who scored highly on this scale also were more likely to cheat to win more money at this game. They also did these interesting studies where they basically imagined the participants to envision themselves in a sort of an employment scenario. So they have a colleague at work who, and they're described as being a little bit unpleasant to be around, and maybe they don't like them very much, and so on. So this is the person they're imagining. But then the researchers asked the participants, how much do you agree with these items, these statements, like, this colleague insults you all the time, this colleague has taken advantage of you, and all of these things, this colleague has done bad things to you, this colleague needs to be fired. Nothing in the description of this person in this sort of scenario indicated that they had ever insulted the participant, that they had ever done anything wrong to them. But the scenario was like, this person, you just don't like them very much, right? And again, the researchers found that people who score high on dark triad are more likely to exaggerate or fabricate negative qualities about this other person and say how badly they've been treated by them.
Huh. I wonder if they actually believe that or not. Has there been any, like, is it full on lying? Is it to get somewhere, or do they switch that in their head so they think that they've been insulted?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's an interesting question, but
Might not matter.
I may not matter because the outcome is such that this is how they behave. And the researchers in that paper, they document how findings from insurance fraud claims, right? Like some X number of millions or billions of dollars every year are lost because of people who are fraudulently filing insurance claim. People who claim that they can't seek employment. And so basically a lot of people will sort of exploit weaknesses in various systems in order to extract economic gain or whatever kind of gain happens to be. But, people who score highly on the dark triad, they tend to be more preoccupied with status, with sexual rewards, so material rewards, social rewards, sexual rewards, and whatever environment they happen to find themselves in, they will enact the strategies to extract those rewards. So if they happen to be, say, in the modern West in the year 2022, they might find that, the best strategy to extract rewards is to signal victimhood. And so that's what they'll do to sort of exploit the weaknesses in the system. But if they're somewhere else, maybe being an extreme narcissist might be the best way to do it. So they'll sort of lean into that. And that's the best way to get attention, to get romantic partners or whatever it happens to be. So they tend to be very good at sort of picking up on, what are the ways to maximize those rewards in whatever social environment they happen to be in.